Hi, I'm James Patterson and welcome to this video tutorial. I'm going to show you how to turn this image we have here of a flower into a pattern that we are then going to apply to this picture we have here of a teacup. And we'll end up with something that looks a little bit like this. So let's start by opening up our flower before JPEG into Photoshop. So the first thing we're going to do is make a selection of the flower itself and try and get rid of all the other information in the image. So let's grab the Magic Wand tool, which you can find up here in your tool panel. And I'm going to start, let's bring the tolerance up to about 30. And I'm just going to click around the background. If I hold Shift and continue to click, then you can see I can continue selecting different areas. Let's just try and select all of this stalk here. So that looks pretty good to me. Now I'm going to go to select and inverse to invert my selection so I just have the flower selected. Let's go ahead and press Command or Control and J to copy that selection to a new layer, and I'm going to drag my background layer to the trash can to delete it. Now I'm going to transform this flower and turn it into a pattern. Let's start by grabbing the move tool over here in the toolbar, and you want to make sure you have auto select and show transform controls. If you have the boxes ticked, it really helps to carry out this technique. This gives me my bounding box. If I hold Shift and drag on that corner here, this will constrain my proportions while I'm resizing it. So let's make it quite small and move it into the corner over here. So something like that looks pretty good. And then if I hold Alt and click on this flower here and drag it to the side, you can see over here in my layers palette that has copied my layer, and if I continue holding Alt and dragging, you can see it's giving me more layers as I go. I'm going to drag along to the side here until we have a complete line. So something like that. Then I'm going to go to layer and let's go to merge visible, and this gives me a whole line of flowers. And then if I continue holding Alt and clicking and dragging on that line, you can see I can carry on making my pattern shape. I'm going to do it on a little bit of a diagonal, so something like this. Maybe let's move that line slightly. So you can see how this is working. Let's continue right up to the top of the screen. So something like that looks pretty good. Then I'm going to go to layer, merge visible again, so I have my complete pattern on one layer. So now I'm going to go back into Bridge and grab my image of the teacup. Let's double click and open that into Photoshop. So it really helps with this technique if you can draw a selection to exclude the cup from the background. So you can draw a selection with shapes like the cup here. Using the pen tool is probably the easiest tool to use. You just need to click and start to drag like this, and then carry on clicking at points. If I hold Alt, I can move that slider to adjust that line, and then carry on clicking around the image. I'm not going to draw a complete path all the way around the image. I have one if I go back to the start here, and then if I go to my paths panel, which I have down the bottom here, you can see I have a path that I've already created that has done the job. So I'm going to go back to my flower before image up here, and if I pick up my move tool, I can click on that layer and drag it into my other image like this. Let's position it kind of over the middle there. And now I want to transform the shape to make it look as if the flower pattern is working around the contours of the cup. And to do this, I'm going to click on the corner of my bounding box here. This will bring me into transform mode. And then if I right click within the box and I can choose different options to transform the image, I'm going to choose warp. You can see this brings up a grid display where I can click and drag in various places to move my image around like this. So this is worth playing around with until you get exactly the look you're after. I'm going to try and drag it around slightly just to create that kind of curved effect that we're looking for. It's quite good to try and get it kind of symmetrical, so maybe move that out slightly. So something like that looks pretty good to me. Let's go ahead and press return or enter to apply that transformation. And next I'm going to adjust the blend mode of my layer just to allow some of the detail of the cup to show through. So if we change that to darken and maybe bring the opacity down to about 85, you can see how that's working. Then I'm going to use my work path to mask off some of these areas where we don't want the pattern showing. So if I hold Control and click on my work path, this will load a selection of the path. I can then click on my Add Layer Mask icon in the Layers panel, and you can see how that's working to mask off the pattern. I can then paint over my mask with a black brush to mask the pattern in other areas where we don't want it. So I can go in and just draw over the saucer here, like this. So I'm just doing this quite roughly. Obviously you can be a bit more precise about it. Something like that looks pretty good to me. Let's just finish off by masking these bits. And I also want to maybe mask the detail inside the cup like this, just to give the impression that the pattern is finishing at the rim. Again, I'm being very rough about this. Okay, so that is good. I'm just maybe going to get rid of that little flower there. Let's just clean that bit up a tiny bit. And then I'm going to repeat the process and drag in another pattern to use for the saucer. So let's drag that in again. So that works on top like this. I'm going to do this quite quickly. Let's click on the corner to bring up the transform controls, go into warp, and then maybe if I drag this down like this, let's try and create kind of a bowl type effect that we can use for the saucer. Let's see how that's looking. Let's apply that. Drag that up like this, maybe turn it slightly. Then I'm going to hold Control and click on my work path again. Let's click on my Add Layer Mask icon, and then I can go into my layer mask again, and this time I'm going to paint to hide the pattern over the cup, so it's only applying to the saucer. You can see how that's working. And then let's change the blend mode to darken and the opacity to 85 again, just to show some of the detail coming through from the cup itself. So now I'm going to finish off the effect by adding a color to the background. Let's go ahead and click the create new layer icon, and I'm going to add a gradient. So let's choose a foreground color. We'll choose a nice light blue, something like that. Looks good. And then for our background color, we'll choose a darker blue. Something around there looks good. I'm going to draw using the gradient tool, so I'll grab the tool in my toolbar over here, and then if I hold shift and draw a line through the image, you can see that's applied the gradient like that. And then I can use my work path again to mask that layer. So if I hold Command and Control and click on my work path, that'll give me my selection. I'm going to add a layer mask, but this time if I hold Alt and click on the Add Layer Mask icon, that will hide the gradient in that selection. And then I just want some of the shadow to show through, so I'm going to change the blend mode here to multiply, and you can see that's given me my shadow there. So there we have it, a really fun technique that you can use to apply a pattern to any surface.